How you doing? Rod Fleming in the Filipinos here. And it's lovely here. It's really nice. We had a nice Christmas. It was a bit weird in some ways, but no, it was basically cool. Had some good fun. Let me just put that like that, so it's still. Right, there you go. That's nice and steady for you. It's better, isn't it? You like it better. Well, anyway, the major event, which I did comment on before Christmas, of December in the UK was the great election on the 12th, the glorious 12th I call it now, in which Ramoners were stuffed like Christmas turkeys and thrown out of the court, and generally that's the end of that one then. And we have now a decisively elected Conservative Leaver government led by Boris Johnson, who's always been a Leaver himself. And we are going to see big changes. We're going to see, although the EU is protesting like stuck pigs, like they always do, they will cause as much trouble as they can, like they always do. They will refuse to treat Britain with the kind of respect that they should, like they always do. But this time it doesn't matter, because Boris Johnson, I honestly believe, will tell them, if he has to, he'll just say, stuff it. We'll leave on WTO terms, and your industry can suffer for it. And believe me, their industry will suffer. If Britain leaves the EU on WTO terms, Ireland will collapse. It's the first thing that's going to happen. Ireland will become a non-economy. It'll be like Cuba, where the Russians, or previously USSR, the Russians have been pumping billions, trillions probably by now, into Cuba just to keep it afloat. And the EU is going to have to do the same thing to Ireland if Britain leaves without an agreement on what WTO terms. That is the actual fact of the matter. And then we can look at the car industry. Well, we import a lot more cars than we export to them. And if that goes down, then who's going to suffer? German car industry. What about wine? Who's going to suffer? French wine industry. What about fish? Who's going to suffer? French and Spanish fishing industries, and the Dutch as well. So don't kid yourself. Don't let the Ramoners away with their BS. We're now in a situation where we're holding the gun, thankfully, at last. So I think it's a good moment to have a look at it and see what we're going to do, and how are we going to look into the future as Britain, Inc., if you like. You know, we've spent a long time, really since the 1960s, playing down Britain, running it down, saying what a terrible thing it is, saying that, oh, look at the dreadful things we did in the past. All this white guilt BS. And we need to get rid of it. We need to say, not anymore. We are proud to be white, and we're proud to be British. Live with it. If you don't like living with it, leave. And one of the real problems is, and this is mentioned many times in the decades running up to the eventual Brexit vote in 2016, I mean, right through the 80s and 90s, this was discussed, was the idea that the idea of a British identity had been lost. And this had been lost in a way rather deliberately. The Scots stopped thinking they were British. The English stopped thinking they were British. They thought, well, you know, we're English, you know, the Welsh stuff. Now, what we have to actually do is re-establish a British identity. I mean, I've always been British. When I was a kid, you know, what were the drawings we did? It was British, you know, Hurricanes and Spitfires against the Germans. We were British. That's what we did. I mean, I can remember driving around the whole of the United Kingdom and afterwards across Europe on my British motorbike, my Norton Commando, which I loved. It was a great bike. And it was British. We didn't call that an English motorcycle. It was a British motorcycle. We understood ourselves as British. I remember travelling through the country the Jubilee year on said machine. And there again, everybody that I met, didn't matter whether they were in Fife, Lanarkshire, I went to Yorkshire and Lancashire, and eventually I went to Kent, and I eventually ended up in Devon. Everybody was, oh, we're British. Isn't it great to be British? You know, it's a Jubilee year. Isn't that wonderful? And that was destroyed deliberately destroyed. That sense of national consciousness was deliberately destroyed by the globalists, whose intention was to destroy Britain in the name of what became the EU, and which is actually better known as Greater Germany, because that's really all it is. That's all it is. The EU exists to stop Germany getting any military ideas again, because nobody trusts them. Well, Britain stood against Germany before, and we'll stand against them again if we have to. It's that simple. And I think it's time that we re-established a British culture. We re-established things like, you know, we quite like our beer warm, thank you very much. And we quite like our football to be played on Saturday afternoons, so we can go there after the pub, instead of some ridiculous hour so it can be shown on fucking Sky television. We rather like to be able to drive from one end of the country to the other without any problems. We rather like the fact that, with some modification, we are, generally speaking, able to communicate with each other in the same language. We rather like all this. Now, I'm not saying that people who are immigrants can't be British, but if they want to be British, they have to join us. You know, it's not up for us to change for them. They come here, that's fine. They should change. And I think we need to establish a British consciousness that has pride in what we are, pride in what we produce, pride in what we make, and pride in our position in the world, instead of this constant self-effacement, putting ourselves down. It's been going on now since the middle 1960s, practically all my adult life. In fact, all my adult life and more, we've had this nonsense. Oh, Britain can't cut the mustard. Britain is the world's 5th biggest economy. We're militarily the most powerful nation in Europe. I mean, what are you talking about? Of course we can stand on our own 2 feet, and it's time we stood up on those 2 feet and said, enough. Enough of your bullshit. We're going to be us. We're going to be British. We're going to make our mark in the world again. You know, when the Sex Pistols came along, what was that, 77, 76, 77, I can't remember. They were British. I mean, okay, they were being anarchistic and they were being all the other things that they were, but that wasn't the point. Across the whole country, everyone, yeah, great British band, you know, aren't they good, yeah. Had a British film industry, which was systematically destroyed by the Americans, by the way, and which we need to re-establish. We need to re-establish it so that we can do what the French do, which is say, no, there is a British national identity, just as the French say, there's a French national identity, and we will invest money in films and programs that promote that. Now, I'm not talking about some ersatz crap. I'm talking the best movies in the world were being made in Britain in the 1960s and 70s. If you remember films like Get Carter, The Lady Killers, all of the Peter Sellers films, they've all been copied by the Americans. Why were they copied by the Americans? I'll tell you why, because they were so bloody good. Okay? We had Monty Python. Now, I don't really think very much of John Cleese, but he's a very talented man. Let's get around it, you know. And so we need to get back to that. We need to say, right, to hell with all this globalist crap that has been destroying us and holding us back for decades. We have the ideal opportunity now to re-establish Britain, not only as a world leader, economically speaking, but also as a world-beating culture, where we are exporting our ideas to the rest of the world instead of being drip-fed these ludicrous USican ideas that are being forced upon us, and various others, by the way. It's high time we said, enough. We'll be the Americans' pals. Yes, of course we'll be pals. There is a special relationship. That doesn't mean that you get to snuff out our identity. We need to fight back. We need to say, no, being British is a good thing. It's a really good thing. And we need to be happy about it, proud of it, and demonstrate that pride. Anyway, that's 3. That'll probably do for this afternoon. Take care of yourselves, guys. I've been using the phone today because the other one's on charge. I was using it a lot over Christmas and I forgot to put it on the bloody charger, you know. You know how it is. Anyway, I quite like the way this looks. I hope it looks as good in the finished film as it does here. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Go with your God, whoever that God is. Take care. Bye.